Träumen Sie nicht auch von einem schönen,
Don't you also dream of a beautiful, healthy, relaxed, powerful, and above all, safe horse?
von einem Partner und Freund, mit dem Sie sich
From a partner and friend with whom you can develop yourself further, with whom you can experience a lot of joy. I will show you how you can achieve this before and during work under the saddle through dynamic, area-related, and athletic lunging.
orientiertes, athletisches Longieren erreichen können. Begleiten Sie mich auf einer Entdeckung.
Accompany me on a journey of discovery that may astonish you. I'll show you some outstanding success stories through lunging, the premier class of groundwork, if you practice it with heart and a lot of horse sense.
Und viel Pferdeverstand praktiziert. So viele Trainer schicken ihre Schüler mit diversen Longiertechniken zwar kurzfristig auf
Many trainers send their students with various lunging techniques on an actually good path.
begrenzt.
However, these ways are often also very limited if you want to get on higher levels.
Keine Grenzen kennen.
Here I show the way on the lunge with horses, which knows almost no limits in athletic development.
Level so
A way
betreiben
that makes unknown things possible, and which you can practice at every dressage, jumping, or eventing level up to the highest.
ohne
In such a way it can go further and further in the development of your horse, and even of your own,
Longieren
without a dead end.
von Beginn an bei der Vorbereitung eines Jungpferdes
Lunging helps us right from start, preparing a young horse for its tasks as a healthy dressage, show jumping, or eventing horse, as a vaulting, as a therapy,
oder vielleicht
or as a carriage horse. Building a fine relationship with the horse and, in parallel, establishing a good basic education are the first goals.
mindestens 2 bis 3 Monate sollte
A
man
young
ein
horse
junges
should be
Pferd
prepared for about 3 months on the lunge,
kräftigend vorbereiten,
so that it can easily carry the rider's weight when breaking in.
Reitergewicht schon sehr gut tragen kann. Das ist die nachhaltigste
This is the most sustainable and gentle way to start a horse.
Reitergröße.
Many great masters like Alois Podolsky had already described that.
Sinnvoll ist das aber nur mit ausreichend
However, this only makes sense with sufficient know-how. Lunging is not the same as lunging.
dynamisch,
Dynamic and area-related means that we not only lunge statically in a circular manner, but also move dynamically in different lines for a variety of reasons.
auch dynamisch im Raum bewegen.
Above all, to train coordination and mobility and to strengthen the connection with the horse.
Pferd zu stärken.
Boredom is avoided from the start through variation. Athletic means that we work specifically on building strength and endurance.
Und der Ausdauer gearbeitet wird. Es beginnt nach
It starts after getting used to the aids and the lunging itself,
dem Longieren an sich
up to there without any auxiliary reins.
ohne Hilfszügel.
With the training of the stretch forward and downwards position, and also the connection, auxiliary reins play a central, supporting role.
Eine sehr zentrale.
Many horse people know that till this point,
Das ist ja noch vielen Pferdemenschen bekannt. Kaum jemand aber kennt
but hardly anyone knows the grandiose possibilities and variations of the accompanying training of dressage, eventing, jumping and vaulting horses from class E to S.
von Klasse E bis S.
Not only in the stretch forward and downwards position, but also in collected gaits on the lunge.
An der Longe. Genauso profitieren Pferde,
Horses that are used for therapy and riding lessons also benefit, if you only know how.
ganz ehrlich,
To be honest, we train our horses up to 50% efficiently and very effectively on the lunge, parallel to riding.
effektiv an der
Training on the lunge plays a really central role for us.
echt zentrale Rolle bei uns. Die 8 Elemente erfüllten Reitens sind dabei immer unser roter Faden.
The 8 elements of fulfilled riding are always our central guideline.
Das Longieren
Dynamic, area-related, athletic lunging also helps wonderfully in the gentle recovery of convalescent horses after injury or illness.
oder Krankheit.
Jacuzzi, for example, was entrusted to us in a very poor physical condition.
Sehr schlechten Zustand anvertraut.
Wir sind zum Alexander gekommen.
We came to Alexander and Ermi because our jacuzzi was injured and sick.
Und des Winters. Der Jacuzzi hat im
He had a bruised coffin bone with accumulated pus on both hind legs.
Auf beiden Hinterbeinen gehabt. Und in weiterer Folge Entzündung entlang der Wirbelsäule.
He also had a bad
Und es war
inflammation along his
definitiv
spine.
so, dass nicht
He was
reitbar
definitely
war.
no longer rideable.
Und von unserer Chiropraktikerin und vom Tierarzt die Empfehlung gekommen ist, therapeutisch.
After the inflammation had subsided, our chiropractor recommended that we do therapeutic training with our jacuzzi.
Hierher zu kommen am Alexanderhof und dort Training, ein Monatstraining bei
We have decided to come to the Alexanderhof for training.
mit dem Schwerpunkt
The focus should be on lunging to recover jacuzzi.
Quasi eine Pferdekur für unseren Jacuzzi.
Mit ihm haben wir alle Tasten auf dem Klavier der Möglichkeiten an der Longe gespielt.
With Jacuzzi, we exploit all possibilities of lunge work.
Zur Zeit.
Fortunately, we have had great success in a very short time.
Ein Pferd auch.
As with any other horse, it began with the work in stretching posture at walk and trot.
Wichtig wurde Takt und
Rhythm and suppleness were redeveloped and restored.
Weise wiederbelebt.
Then we added strengthening and coordination exercises.
Und die Koordination schulende Übungen dazu. Dafür haben wir uns unter anderem
For this purpose, we have built our own, small practice area, in which we can also train all horses uphill and downhill on the lunge.
bergab.
Small jumps have also been integrated.
Auch kleinere Sprünge wurden integriert. Nanini ist ein weiteres Pferd, das
Nanini is another horse that we have built up muscularly with this work.
aufgebaut haben. Wie man sieht, ist eine
As you can see, good coordination and your own body language are of crucial importance, because otherwise you would not be able to lead a horse safely. It goes without saying what the terms dynamic and area related mean.
orientiert bedeutet. Nach entsprechender Grundfestigung der
After the musculature has been properly strengthened, the horse can then begin to work in a more collected way. We set the auxiliary reins higher, as high as it is easily possible for the horse to follow them in good contact. Now, more work is done at a canter.
ein wesentlicher
Working with cavaletti is an essential part of the work.
Cavaletti.
When walking and trotting, these activate the action of the legs enormously.
Unheimlich wirkungsvoll die Aktion der
With cavaletti work, you can loosen the back of the horse and also promote coordination.
die Koordination. Wir setzen auch besondere
In addition, we use special elements on the floor that stimulate the action even more on the lunge.
Kräftigung.
Through strengthening and increased coordination skills, horses get also very supple in movement. Pedro, the horse of very good friends of ours, shows us very clearly what this work has positive effects on his body.
in seinem Körper Positives bewirkt. Man sieht deutlich den Kraft.
You can see Pedro's use of force with very elastic movement at the same time. This is where really athletic training happens. The good coordination skills are particularly evident when, as here, Pedro comes to the obstacle inappropriately. He is excellent at correcting it. This momentum, this fabulous dynamic can later be enjoyed in the saddle.
Diese fabelhafte Dynamik kann man dann im Sattel einfach nur mehr genießen. Der nächste Schritt zu einer
The next step towards a comprehensive range of exercise for Jacuzzi was jumping on the lunge.
Schritt für
Without putting risk to the horse's trust, the jumping was built up in small steps.
Forderung aufs Spiel zu setzen, waren bald schön kontrollierte Sprünge möglich. Neben dem Freispringen
In addition to free jumping, jumping on the lunge is a very efficient training because you can lead the horse very well controlled to the obstacles.
anführen kann. All unsere Trainings
We train all of our horses to jump on the lunge.
zum Beispiel
Here, for example, the mare Coco during her first attempts. My horse called Go Ahead is a bit advanced.
Gymnastikreihe an der Luft. Capolino ebenfalls in einer Sprunggymnastikreihe.
Also in a series of jumps. Capolino, here trained by my wife Ermi.
Im Fall Jacuzzi hat uns dieses
In the case of Jacuzzi, this varied training session on the lunge gave us very positive feedback from the owner after a few weeks. Let's let her speak for herself.
Heute, einen Monat später, dürfen wir ihn wieder abholen, weil es ihm so unglaublich gut geht. Wir freuen uns, dass er wieder
Today, 5 weeks later, we can pick him up again because he's doing so incredibly well.
wieder reiten dürfen.
We are so glad that Jacuzzi can come back home again.
Als wir uns
We are happy to be able to ride him again very soon. Above all, we are grateful that everything went much faster than we expected. The great stay with Alexander and Ermi saved us a lot of costs at the vet and even a treatment in the equine clinic. Jacuzzi was worked here 90% on the lunge and also on the hand.
Es war jeder Tag ein neues Abenteuer quasi. Jeden Tag ist anders longiert und gearbeitet worden mit einem ganz abwechslungsreiches Programm von Cavaletti, Arbeit über Stangen.
Every day was a new adventure. Every day was different. It was always varied. I have never seen Jacuzzi with such gaits, and so am really looking forward to what the future may
Ich habe
bring.
in Jacuzzi eigentlich noch nie so gesehen wie jetzt zum Schluss und freue mich jetzt extrem auf das, was noch zu Hause kommen wird und was auch die Zukunft bringt, weil
Obviously, Alexander has developed more potential in his gaits than we would have dared to dream before. All through training here at the Alexanderhof, we look forward to a long cooperation with Alexander and Ermi.
das Training da und die Abwechslung und wir freuen uns dann auch schon, wenn der Alexander, wenn wir mit ihm weiterarbeiten dürfen, aber quasi dann von zu Hause aus.
Ich sagte ja, Unterstützung.
I mentioned before, support on the lunge up to Class S.
Dafür steht unser Luxor.
This is what our Luxor, who is trained in lessons up to Class S, stands for.
Er wird circa
We do half of his training on the lunge.
an der Longe gearbeitet. Das gibt dem Pferd einerseits
This gives the horse lively variety on the one hand and very gentle strengthening on the other.
eben reiterlos. Gerade seine letzten Entwicklungsschritte
His last steps in his development were made possible in this quality by the lunge work.
Das Beste daran ist,
The best thing about Luxor is that he is also a super friendly, empathetic, sensitive therapy horse. He is really everybody's darling.
uns am Hof arbeiten und bei den Klienten sowieso. Ja, und Reitunterricht ist mit
And riding lessons are the absolute highlight for all riding students anyway.
Schülerinnen und Schülern. Ein anderes Beispiel ist eben unser Capolino.
Another example is our Capolino, as we saw before.
Aber in den letzten 2 Jahren
He has hardly been ridden at all for the past 2 years.
Freund von uns
However, he was kept fit by a good friend of ours only through lunge work.
gehalten wurde, wie er heute ist. Er zeichnet sich durch
He is characterized by extremely athletic muscling. You can see it all over his body.
Hinterhand mit kräftigen Hosen, einer wunderbar rund bemuskelten Krupp-Hüftpartie, über einen kräftigen Rücken und straffen Bauch, über die kräftige Schulter bis zu einem wirklich mächtigen Hals. Dass diese Muskulatur nicht nur
A recording from the last free jumping shows that these muscles are not just show, but also extremely powerful.
Boxer von 1 Meter
He overcomes an obstacle of 1.55 meters with wonderful aesthetics.
einfach nur eine Freude zuzusehen. Und noch eine Möglichkeit gibt es.
And there is another possibility. In preparation for jumping in the field, we also lunge horses over various obstacles. This not only helps the horses to have good experiences without a rider, it gives yourself as well a lot of confidence when you see that your horse can jump the obstacles well, before you venture into the saddle yourself. Once again, we see Jacuzzi on its first attempts. At the beginning he tries to get over it somehow. Usually the horses jump too high on the first attempts. This is why it's good when horses can practice obstacles without a rider. After a very short time, you can see the progress in his efficient approach to the jump.
Und hier noch einige Impressionen von dieser Art des Longiertrainings. Pedro wurde ebenfalls an der Longe.
Pedro was also used to the obstacles without a rider. As a result, he made his owner very happy because he carried her over the obstacles with a safe confidence.
Sicherheit über diese massiven Hindernisse getragen hat. Wenn uns die langjährige Erfahrung noch etwas gelernt hat, dann
Our many years of experience have taught us something,
Herangehensweise bei kaltblütigen, kalibrigen Pferden.
namely that it makes no difference in the approach with cold-blooded and more solidly built horses.
Sensibel und dynamisch sind und genauso bemerkenswert vom Longieren profitieren. Hier im Bild die Stute Tennessee.
Here in the pictures the mare Tennessee. Through dynamic, area-related, athletic lunging, she was successfully prepared for her job as a vaulting horse.
Gymnastiziert werden. Gleiches gilt natürlich für
The same applies of course to halflingers, ponies, and many other horse breeds.
keinen Unterschied zu machen. Wir arbeiten dabei je nach
We work with and without auxiliary reins,
also
always depending on the horse's needs and development and if it makes sense. We stand very clearly against modern philosophies that generally judge auxiliary reins badly. We are standing for solid, classical training. This very old know-how arose empirically through trial and error. It grew through experience over centuries, always with the aim of a gentle, sustainable development of riding horses. Mainly, we use simple side reins to develop the potential of a horse. That supports horses from stretching on one hand to a high degree of collection on the other.
Darüber hinaus greifen wir auch auf eine
In addition, we also fall back on an idea that was described by the Portuguese Manuel Carlos de Andrade in his book as early as 1790. Let me translate the title of the book freely as about the light of free and noble art of writing.
Sehr, sehr bekanntes Werk zu seiner Zeit. Bekannt geworden unter dem Begriff
This tool has become known under the term Spanish writer in writing history. Among many others, it was cultivated by Ernst Friedrich Seidler and described in his book, The Dressage of Difficult Horses in 1846. He was, by the way, a student of Max von Weyrother at the Spanish Writing School. Later he became himself a stable master at the Royal Prussian Military Writing School.
Auch von Nuno Oliveira, dem berühmten
Nuno Oliveira, the famous Portuguese writer of the last century, also recommended this means for training on the lunge and with the Spanish writer. See his book, Advice from an Old Writer to Young Writers. It is an aid that allows the side reins to be applied even over the withers. There it replaces a calm, elastic writer's hand. It gives the appropriate alignment, approximately in the angle that otherwise only arises from a writer's hand.
Der ansonsten nur durch eine Reiterhand überhaupt erst entsteht. Wie kaum ein anderes Hilfsmittel.
Like hardly any other aid, it should only be used expertly and, above all, only very dosed. We certainly don't use it on every horse either. It has to make sense, not force, if you want to use it. We use it very successfully. To honor of the horseman who taught us this aid, we call it the Stutz. For decades this man has developed the application of this completely forgotten tool to very fine perfection. He passed this experience and knowledge on to us in countless hours of lessons.
Dieses Wissen in unzähligen Stunden des Erfahrungsaustausches weitergegeben. Er selbst erfuhr übrigens von diesem Hilfsmittel von seinem Großvater.
By the way, even he found out about this aid from his grandfather in the 1950s. His grandfather in turn, and this is very interesting, took it home with him from his time in the Prussian cavalry in the 1910s.
10er Jahren mit nach Hause. Diese Stütz nun kann schon im Schritt
This Stutz can already be applied in certain phases in walk. As if by reins, it gives the horse the form that enables beautiful striding.
genauso dann im Trab. An der Stelle
Likewise when trotting. At this point it should be mentioned that the main criteria are and remain those of the classic riding theory. It's about rhythm, serenity, impulsion and connection. That is always the aim. What is also nice to see in these recordings is that the pole is definitely the highest point, and the nose of the horse is in front of, or at most in a vertical line.
oder maximal in der Senkrechten liegt. Die Elastizität
The elasticity of the construction is similar to the soft, springy, calm and stable hand with reins. Incidentally, this work is inconceivable without a certain impulse.
der Arbeit übrigens auch nicht denkbar. Die Variablen in der Anwendung
The parameters to be considered in the application and in use are as follows: level of training and daily condition of the horse, the gait and the pace, the height and length of the reins. This also means in particular the length of the temporal use. Rather, it is the brevity of the exercises and the breaks in between.
Noch einmal möchte ich wiederholen.
I want to repeat once more. Improperly used auxiliary reins of whatever kind can have catastrophic effects on the horse if used improperly or inexperienced. So please always consult an expert trainer if you are inexperienced.
An eines wollen wir generell bei dieser Arbeit immer
There is one thing we always want to keep in mind when doing this work. Everything, really everything begins, is accompanied and ends with a careful, respectful bond with the horses entrusted to us. They are such incredibly valuable living beings for us and our own development as humans. We should always pay attention to their needs in keeping, handling and care. They will thank it us richly. We just experience it every day.
danken. Wir erleben es einfach täglich. Sie sehen nun, Logieren
You see now,
gleich Logieren.
not all lunging is the same. There are worlds between lunging and letting a horse run haphazardly in a circle. Finally, please be careful. I only showed here what is possible. As is so often the case when working with horses, better and worse are very close to one another. Real success is only possible with professional, long-term training.
Sind Erfolge möglich. Habe ich Sie nun neugierig gemacht auf den
Have I made you curious about dynamic, area-related, athletic lunging? Maybe you want to learn the wonderful possibilities of lunging now, and use it for your horse. Do you want to use it to develop its coordination, strength, and expression? Do you want to improve its health and well-being with it and deepen the bond with your horse through clear interaction?
Die Verbundenheit zu Ihrem Pferd vertiefen?
Then I invite you to find us under fulfilledhorsemanship.at. Contact us and we will arrange lessons, training, courses, or lectures on the topic. We would also be happy to meet you in your stable, international, worldwide. I'm looking forward to you and your horse. Fulfilling moments will arise, because lunging classically oriented is simply the supreme discipline of groundwork.
Der Bodenarbeit ist. Also bis bald, Ihr Alexander Grundsteiner, Fulfilled Horsemanship.